Ferrari just did something that has every engineer in the Mercedes and Red Bull garage absolutely terrified. And I am not talking about the steel cylinder heads. I am not talking about the Macarena wing. I am talking about a secret so well hidden that even the FIA completely missed it until it was too late. Meanwhile, Honda's brand new engine is literally shaking itself to death. And Max Verstappen, four-time world champion, sat in front of the media just days ago and publicly admitted he cannot fight for the win in Melbourne. F1 2026 hasn't dropped its first checkered flag. And it is already on fire. Stay with me to the very end of this video, because I am going to show you a brand new FIA mechanism called ADUO that almost no channel is talking about right now. And by the time this video ends, you will see this entire 2026 season completely differently. Let's go. Hit subscribe and the bell right now so you don't miss our Melbourne race week breakdowns. They're going to be different from anything else you'll find. Before we get to Ferrari's secret, you need to understand what just happened with the FIA. The 2026 technical regulations, specifically Article C 5.4.3, capped the internal combustion engine's compression ratio at 16:1. That is the rule. Simple. Except it wasn't. Because until recently, that check was only done at ambient temperature. Cold. Room temperature. Here is the problem. When an engine reaches full race temperature, around 130 degrees Celsius, materials expand. Tolerances shift. Combustion chambers change shape. And theoretically, an engine that passes at 16:1 when cold could behave very differently at racing temperatures. Multiple rival teams, Ferrari, Honda, Audi, they all suspected that Mercedes had found and engineered straight into that exact gap. The numbers being thrown around the paddock were serious. Up to 13 brake horsepower. 3 to 4 tenths of a second per lap. Every single lap. Now, I saw a comment from a fan this week, and this one stuck with me. They wrote, "Didn't Red Bull hit 344 km per hour in testing? Only team to do that. They're likely doing the compression trick too." That comment has not been officially answered. And I want you to keep that question in the back of your mind. Toto Wolff? He called the whole thing, and I'm quoting here directly, a storm in a teacup. He said the power unit is legal, it complies with the regulations as written, and any benefit is maybe, a couple of horsepower. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur was not so relaxed. He publicly described the regulatory handling as, his word, embarrassing. So who was right? Stay with me. Because the answer is about to shock you. The FIA moved. They unanimously revised Article C 5.4.3 of the 2026 technical regulations. Here is the official three-phase timeline, and I want you to read this on screen. Phase 1, until May 31, 2026, compression ratio tested cold only. Phase 2, June 1 to December 31, 2026, tested at both cold and hot, 130 degrees Celsius. Phase 3, from 2027 onwards, hot only. And the new wording? It now explicitly bans, and I'm quoting the regulation directly, any component, assembly, mechanism, or integrated arrangement designed or functioning to increase the compression ratio under operating conditions beyond 16.0. Gray area? Closed. In black and white. Unanimously approved by every team on the grid. Here is where the story flips completely. BBC Sport, citing senior F1 insiders, confirmed that the FIA had already tested the Mercedes power unit at both ambient temperature and at the new 130-degree condition. The result? Under the limit. Both times. Compliant. Clean. The rivals pushed for a rule change to destroy Mercedes. And the tests came back validating them instead. Think about that. Mercedes also logged more mileage than any other team in Bahrain pre-season testing. Every single day. More laps. More data. More confidence. Wolff told the media, "It's a relief that we started testing and it actually feels decent. The drivers are quite pleased with the car. We know we are not miles off." He also dropped one technical detail that almost everyone missed. He said that 10 kilograms of fuel load is worth 3 to 3.5 tenths per lap. Which means every single testing lap time you saw from every team could be completely misleading depending on fuel levels. F1 analyst Martin Brundle, former Grand Prix driver, Sky Sports stalwart, has said that a more settled, confident Lewis Hamilton in a stronger Ferrari could be a genuine championship threat this season. But here is the real question I want you to think about right now. If Mercedes' engine was already engineered precisely within the 16:1 ceiling, at both temperatures, didn't rivals just waste months of political energy and legal pressure trying to shut down something that was legal the whole time? Whose side are you on? Drop it in the comments right now. Mercedes, innocent or genius? I'm reading every reply. Now, Ferrari. While Mercedes was fighting the compression war, Ferrari was quietly building something that nobody in the paddock fully understood until it was too late. The first piece, steel alloy cylinder heads. Every other manufacturer on the grid is still using traditional aluminium. Ferrari made the switch to steel, a material that can withstand combustion pressures exceeding 250 bar and temperatures that aluminium simply cannot tolerate. What this does is trap heat inside the combustion chamber exactly where power is generated, reducing thermal bleed. The consequence? Ferrari can run radiators that are 20% smaller than the competition. And smaller radiators mean one thing in aerodynamics: tighter packaging. Narrower sidepods. Less drag. More downforce efficiency. That is the only reason the ultra-narrow Melbourne Spec 3 sidepods are even physically possible. The second piece, the 22.5-degree rotating Macarena rear wing. In Melbourne, with 4 straight-line activation zones at Albert Park, Hamilton will be deploying that wing across every single straight. It is a qualifying weapon and a race weapon in one system. The third piece, and this is the one Ferrari kept completely hidden, a metal flap called the FTM, positioned directly behind the tailpipe. It redirects exhaust gases underneath the rear wing. The result is a modern blown diffuser effect. Ferrari fought a 6-week legal battle with the FIA over this component. It was certified legal. And here is what it does in real numbers: up to half a second per lap in corner entry efficiency, on circuits like Melbourne where corner entry is everything. And the Bahrain testing? The wide, clumsy-looking Spec 2 bodywork? That was not incompetence. That was a smokescreen, deliberately designed to feed false aerodynamic data to the Mercedes and Red Bull aero departments. While Hamilton was testing stability in Bahrain, he was actually building the thermal database for the ultra-narrow Melbourne package. Ferrari did not settle for safe. Ferrari was playing four-dimensional chess while everyone else was playing drafts. Now let's talk about the team at the other end of the grid. Honda describes their own power unit's vibration issues as, their words, dangerous and extremely challenging. Here is what is actually happening inside that car. At Adrian Newey's insistence, the MGU-K, the motor generator unit, was installed as low as physically possible to reduce the center of gravity. Classic Newey philosophy. Lower is always better. Except that placement forced the battery to split across 2 levels. And that battery now sits directly next to the MGU-K, absorbing every vibration the engine produces. The chassis itself, engineered to Newey's extreme aerodynamic requirements, amplifies those vibrations rather than damping them. Honda reportedly asked Newey to structurally reinforce certain areas. He refused to compromise his aero targets. This is not a rookie mistake. This is what happens when you take extreme engineering philosophy to its absolute limit. The same mindset that made Newey a legend at Red Bull is now costing Aston Martin the entire opening phase of their 2026 season. The plan right now, a temporary patch for Melbourne, which is essentially written off, and a permanent engineering fix targeted for Suzuka, Japan, Round 3. Aston Martin doesn't even have a virtual track test facility in their own factory. They are using Honda's rig in Japan just to diagnose the problem. Where does that leave them when the vibrations are resolved? Half a second off? A second off? Nobody knows. And Mercedes will not be standing still while they figure it out. Max Verstappen, 4-time world champion. On March 1, 2026, just days ago, he said this on camera. Direct quote. "In terms of performance, we'll need to take another step to fight at the front. Realistically, I don't think we'd be able to fight for the win at the moment." He also said, and this line went viral on X, even trying to explain this to a regular viewer, or even just to myself looking at the data, I'm like, is this really what we want? Max does not sandbag. Max does not manage the media the way some team bosses do. If Max says he cannot fight for wins, you believe him. He flagged Melbourne specifically as one of the worst tracks for Red Bull this year: long straights, very few heavy braking zones. In Bahrain, Red Bull's engineers pioneered dropping to first gear through certain corners to maximize energy harvesting, then deploy it on the straights. That specific trick will not work at Albert Park. The track profile doesn't allow it. Can Max Verstappen overdrive a 3rd or 4th fastest car and steal a Melbourne podium? Drop your prediction below. Let's see if the community gets this right. Now let me be honest with you. Because that is what this channel is built on. There are real risks in everything I just told you. Mercedes has not won a race yet. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli still need to execute across 24 rounds with a completely new car. And Antonelli is a rookie stepping into one of the highest pressure seats in modern F1 history. If Russell stumbles early, there is no veteran safety net to steady the team. Ferrari's Steel Revolution and secret Spec 3 package? Vasseur himself confirmed a parts shortage during Bahrain testing. The perfect hidden weapon narrative has cracks. And here is something almost nobody is covering right now. The FIA has also introduced a system called ADUO, Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. It is a formal mechanism specifically designed to prevent any power unit manufacturer from running away with a dominant advantage. If a supplier falls significantly behind, they receive extra development allowances, checked at race 6, race 12, and race 18. That means even if Mercedes builds a dominant lead before June, the FIA has a formal tool to rebalance the field mid-season. That is not a footnote. That is a championship shaping mechanism. And it changes everything about how we should read the first half of the season. History always tells us something. In 2009, Braun GP arrived at Melbourne as a team nobody took seriously. With a double diffuser every rival screamed was illegal. The FIA allowed it. Braun won Australia. Braun won the championship. The team that found and exploited the grey area while rivals complained? They won. In 2014, Mercedes cracked the new hybrid era so completely that they won 11 of 16 races in the very first season. Rivals didn't catch up for years. In 2020, Mercedes introduced the dual-axis steering system, DAS. Rivals complained. FIA banned it for 2021. Didn't matter. Mercedes had already won. The pattern is always the same. The team that understands the new rule book the deepest, not just follows it, wins the new era. My Melbourne prediction, backed by the data. Mercedes arrive as the most statistically prepared team. Most mileage, regulatory clarity, compliant engine. George Russell is the championship favorite if that car is as strong as the signals suggest. Ferrari, steel cylinder heads, FTM blown diffuser effect, 22.5-degree Macarena wing, and a Spec 3 package that rivals have never seen on track. Hamilton has a genuine shot at the front row and a race win at Albert Park. Red Bull, points and a possible podium if energy management clicks. Not a win. Aston Martin, survival mode. Melbourne is already written off internally. And the real inflection point for this entire championship? June 1st. That is when phase 2 of the compression rule begins. That is when every engine gets tested hot and cold. That is when we find out if anyone has been hiding something. Look, before you go, I want to say something directly. If you want the real F1 story, not the clickbait, not the speculation, not the hype, but the actual technical analysis, backed by official regulations, verified data and paddock sources, this is your channel. F1 News Breakdown. Other channels will give you the headline. We give you the story behind the headline. Subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell. Because Melbourne Race Week is here, and our race day breakdown, our qualifying analysis, and our post-race deep dive are going to tell you things the mainstream coverage simply won't. 3 questions before you leave. Answer them in the comments. 1. Mercedes, innocent or engineering genius? 2. Is Newey's Aston Martin experiment already a failure? 3. Who wins the 2026 Australian Grand Prix? The comment section is open. The season is here. I will see you in the next breakdown.